Welcome in to another edition of the Illinicast. I'm Austin Berkland alongside Sonny Burma. It's been a while since the two of us have been able to get together between moving and work and everything in between. And we thank Kirkland for stepping in between to talk a little bit about Illini and Kansas football and that win and the expectations that have changed for Illini football. But today, Illini basketball and Brad Underwood just weaseling their way back into the main headlines of Illini sports. And we have a commitment by Keaton Wagler. And we will talk about that. But Sonny, welcome back. How have things been? How's your move to Texas gone?
I've finally settled in. It's been about a month and a half now. And, obviously with some of the other obligations I have, things have been super hectic. I got two kids under 6 years old. And, moving's never easy when you're moving across the street. So moving across 3, 4 states wasn't much easier. But I'm getting into the grind. Football season is underway. So, I'm just ready to talk about it.
So has the University of Texas fans been like, oh shoot, we are so scared of Illini football, like they're in the top 25. Are we going to see a quarterfinal matchup between Texas and Illinois? Have you gotten any of those comments down there?
There's a lot of intimidation when I walk around with my Illinois hat on. These Austinites, they don't want much of this Fighting Illini team. They're very grateful that they moved into the SEC, and they'll continue to be the inferior Orange.
Arch Manning, look out for Luke Altmaier. I'll tell you that much. No interceptions for Luke Altmaier yet on this young season. But let's begin with the hardwood Keaton Wagler committing to the Illini, a sharpshooter, as they say, and a recruitment that's kind of taken a different turn. It's just been more of the traditional way of like starting out with MAC offers and Missouri Valley offers and then grown into being a top get for a Big Ten program. I just think this is a great fit and great talent evaluation by Brad Underwood and his staff.
100%. I've talked about this previously. For me, I didn't know who this kid was until a few days ago. But then I'm looking at his tape, and I'm genuinely dumbfounded why bigger programs aren't after him. The guy can shoot. The guy's a legit shooter, and at 6'6", he provides exactly what Brad Underwood and the staff seems to be kind of focusing on at this point. So, I mean, tough loss for everyone else. Obviously, Minnesota really went after the guy, and it came down to us two, from what we've gathered, and the fact that Illinois pulled it out. I think this is a huge win, not just for us, but for him too, in the sense where I think he's committing to Fletch just as much as he's committing to us, because I think that's the only thing that's kind of lacking in his whole frame. He needs to gain some weight, needs to gain some muscle. And I think aligning himself with a guy like Fletch, he's got the height, he's got the size to make it to the next level, and he's certainly got the shooting ability. I think Fletch could be the key for him to make it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Bill Self was sniffing around Keaton at least, and if a guy like Bill Self is interested, that means that player has some legitimate upside, and you're going to have guys in this new fangled way of building a roster, guys that are willing to develop, guys that are willing to stick around, because you don't want exactly what this year is going to look like early on, like because there aren't a lot of returning players for this Illini basketball roster. So in the future, I think you're trying to safeguard that as best as possible. Whether that would be just getting some 3-star guys or getting some guys that just don't have the physical capabilities yet. So I think that is a huge factor on what this team is going to look like moving forward. You're going to have a few developmental guys, and then you're going to fill around those guys that have really caught fire in their development with some transfer portal guys and some 5-star and maybe a 1-year international guy.
And the same idea is like, now that there's going to be expanded scholarships on the basketball side, you can't pay 15 guys six figures in NIL money all the time. You're going to have to, because we know, with a guy like Orlando Antigua and the way this coaching staff has been recruiting as of late, we're going to be in the mix for some of the top names in the country. And that's essentially going to happen annually. That's why Orlando got paid the big bucks that he just got paid. But to supplement all that top talent, you're going to need the guys who, as you mentioned, can maybe sit and develop for a year or two. And then, next year maybe become a solid rotational piece. And who knows, a third year, he can be, a starter on this team. Again, he certainly has his shooting skills. But overall, great pick. I think, it's under the radar. He doesn't exactly have the offer list for what a 4-star genuinely looks like. So I was coming into this recruitment kind of hesitant. But when I saw the tape, for me, I think Illinois got in right at the right time.
And I mean, you're going to want some sure things 3 years down the road as well. Like, as much of a sure thing as possible, at least he's going to be on the campus in Champaign, so you can have a better shot of keeping him, unless he goes in the portal. Like, that's the new world order of college sports.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, 3 years down the road, say there isn't a guy with Keaton's skill set in the portal. Say that they're just not that guy that makes sense for Brad Underwood. At least you have a bird in the hand for that particular skill set 3 years down the road. So that's the exciting part, is at least having guys on your roster that are kind of locked into a place hypothetically down the road.
Yeah, and you need guys who just like, we have a role for him at some point. Like Kylan Boswell has maybe 2 years left in the max, obviously, possibly just one. Kasparis sounds like he's going to be a one and done. Sounds like he's going to be done, after the first year. Hopefully, if he doesn't, that might mean actually bad news for the Illini. So, having guys who like Dre Gibbs Lawhorn this year, like the role that Ty Rodgers is going to play, someone who's been in that locker room for a couple seasons, it can only be a good thing. And again, this could be another advertisement for Fletch in 3 months when he takes a snapshot of, whenever he commits or comes to campus, take a picture of Keaton, and then 3 months later shows what he looks like. It's just continually shows what kind of strength and conditioning program we have and what kind of recruiting we have. And again, I think the sharp shooting that is his best skill set is going to fit so well in this offensive game plan that Brad Underwood's and Tyler Underwood have been developing.
I mean, it's kind of amazing what Fletch can do to the human body when guys want to put in the effort. Like, I looked at Ben Hummerkaus's latest photo difference with that Fletch posted, and it's something special. Like, Fletch just has the magical formula of getting these guys in really, really great shape, and not just for awesome gym photos, but actually putting it into production. Like, Coleman Hawkins played notably more physical as his time in Champaign moved along. And I think that's the kind of case where you're going to see like some of these guys that commit as freshmen and try to stick around as long as possible, just because they're going to be tied into the process of Fletch. Like, that's the reason why you don't. That's the major reason why a lot of guys will stick around and not go into the transfer portal.
And another thing I liked about him when I was taking a look is he's not even necessarily the guy on the teams that he's been playing on over the past year. So he's a guy who, right off the bat, I don't see wanting to transfer because all of a sudden he thinks his role isn't as one of the main go-to guys on this team. Now, granted, if he went to a place like Minnesota, sure, he could have probably played more minutes and gotten more points, but I think the development edge that we have, the strength and conditioning edge that we have at Illinois, I think he's one of those guys who, in 2 seasons, in 3 seasons, will be an important part of this offense, but not a guy that Brad Underwood's going to have to feel like he needs to feed minutes to just in order to keep him happy to not get transfer portaled away. He's got the skill set already for the pros. That's all he needs to do. If he can continue to maybe grow another inch or two and continue hitting at a 50% clip, he'll have an NBA future ahead of him. And, just thinking that, he doesn't need to be the guy or even the top two guys on the Illini basketball team, it's good to have that balance there because, again, we're going to be recruiting top 10, top 15 guys in the future. And those are the guys that are going to come in with that sort of expectation. So you don't want 15 guys thinking that way.
Exactly. Like, that's the worst thing that you want to have for a roster is every guy thinking they're the guy. Like, you need some guys that know what their role is. Like in the NBA, for example, whenever you're a rookie, unless you're a number one overall pick, your main job is to rebound and play defense and to not make those crucial mental or physical errors that cost your NBA team the victory. In college, I think that's where some of the more successful organizations are going to have to go in this mentality of not having just collecting talent. That's where John Calipari kind of has struggled recently because when you have all these young freshmen thinking they're the guy, then that's where shots are missed. That's where turnovers happen. That's where guys playing hero ball happen way too much. And I think Brad Underwood understands that. And you bring a guy like Wagler in, and I think that's going to help at least early on, and then he can set himself up for a bigger role each year after each year.
And again, this we could maybe transition a little bit. What I also liked about this Wagler recruitment was Tyler Underwood was the lead on it. A guy who obviously uh, he's a lightning rod when it comes to Illini fans, and what his role is and whether he's deserved of his role or not. But I mean, from what he's proven to us with, I know he had a big hand in the offense that we developed last year, and now he's starting to, really in his second or third season as an assistant coach, reel in a 4-star. That's huge for the resume. And I know, maybe Austin, we can touch on this a little bit. There's a lot of assistant coach drama going on with the Illini basketball team, and it looks like that there's a chance that Tim Anderson's going to be leaving the staff this year. And so it's obviously way too late. I think we're 2 weeks away from practices starting. You're not going to find another Tim Anderson out there. The Illinois job is a very attractive one. Not only do we have a basketball rich state, a passionate fan base, but we also have the money. We pay top dollar for assistant coaches. And so you're not going to be able to find another Tim Anderson now, but you might be able to at the beginning of the off season next year when the season ends, hopefully after a Final Four or a national championship. So, seeing guys like Tim Underwood kind of grow takes a little tension off of wondering if the rest of the staff outside Orlando and Jeff are ready.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Underwood has always been a part of a recruiting process with his dad as head coach. Like, I remember seeing him at Cam's when Juwan Evans was on campus and everything. So it feels like not Juwan Evans, my goodness. He's been a part of recruiting processes all throughout his time at Illinois, being the buddy essentially of the recruit coming onto campus. And I just feel like that he is okay to, at least for a year or two, to step in and be a guy that Brad can rely on. I mean, he knows what kind of talent that Brad likes. He knows what kind of mentality that Brad Underwood likes. And it's all about him showcasing that he does have those recruiting chops, which obviously he did with Wagler here. So I think this is going to be a good. It's going to leave Illinois in a good place for a couple of years while you're trying to replace Tim to find that perfect fit for Tim's replacement, because Tim brought a lot of Chicago expertise to the U of I. He brought a lot of cachet, being that NBA kind of trainer for a lot of different NBA prospects. So that was a very sexy thing for recruits to see and coming in, and the transfer portal guys coming in. But I mean, if you have a strong NIL base, how much does an assistant coach matter? If CBS Sports is to be believed with that coaching poll, Illinois is a top 10 program in NIL in terms of how much they have to offer for kids in the country. So I don't know if you want to focus on player development more, if you know you have the NIL to keep drawing the talent in. So we'll see what truly matters in the world of college basketball recruiting. Is it still having that staff, or is it having the NIL bankroll, essentially?
I mean, it's a bummer. There's no way to say, as Jay said in the comment section, losing Tim would suck. Yeah, this sucks. I mean, this is one of those where if you asked me if there was one assistant I would not have wanted to lose, and this includes Orlando, it would have been Tim Anderson. I just think that the impact he's had, with just our resurgence as of late, there was so much drama with his hiring on just because it was so delayed. But as you said, like we're talking about how important development is and how important NIL is. Tim Anderson's actually one of the best development guys in the country as well. Like that's why he's working with NBA players. That's why it looks like he's not necessarily even going back to another team to coach or anything like that. Like he can make a living, a very good living, just training with NBA players or NBA prospects. He gets paid very handsomely just doing that. So maybe for whatever reason he's decided to leave. Um, Being a college coach is hard. Especially an assistant coach, you're constantly recruiting, you're constantly on the road, you're texting 15, 16, 17 year olds and getting to know their moms and dads and uncles. I think if it's a job that you're not 100% satisfied with, and I mean in the work life balance and what it looks like maybe in Tim's case, how he's financially compensated, it's nice to have a fallback option that you're also A, very good at, and B, paid very, very well for.
And I mean, sometimes things are more than basketball. Like, I know Tim has such a huge connection with the city of Chicago. And if you're taken away from Chicago, and I know, Sonny, like, you know this yourself, like, Chicago means a lot to the people who have lived there or been around the city for quite a while. And maybe that's something that just Tim misses because whenever get the Chicago bug, you never lose that Chicago bug ever. So I think that that's could be another big reason why Tim would leave Champaign is just wanting to be back within the city. He has a lot of great organizations up there that he works with, and I think that could be something that he wants to just strive for and leave the assistant coaching behind. He's probably left a great nest egg for his family if he managed his money well, which no reason to think that he hasn't. He's going to be set for life with his contracts that he's already had from Champaign.
And my only hope is just because all of this is kind of very hush hush and things have been leaking out over the past couple of weeks, but I hope that they're parting on good terms because the city of Chicago and Illinois are going to have some very good players in the next couple classes. And so you're hoping that when some of those players, that are playing for Mean Streets, for example, are taking their visits to Illinois, they're going to hear from Tim Anderson. And you're going to just have to hope that what Tim says, is relatively positive and say, yeah, hey, it didn't work out for me, but you're going to get developed down there. They've got a good culture down there. Brad's one heck of a coach because, a bad word from a guy like him who's so influential with so many players. I mean, Terrence Shannon Jr.'s mother on social media the other day, when she got wind about Tim Anderson leaving, she literally made a post saying, how sad she was because he was one of the main reasons that Terrence had decided to come to the Illini. And so, like, he's got a huge influence, like whether it's like a uncle figure, a father figure, with a lot of those families in Chicago. And so that's why I'm just hoping that everyone's parting with like a very understanding viewpoint of each other.
Yeah, I mean, he did coach with an Elite Eight team, which should matter to him to say that this was a good experience. And it's tough to have a bad experience when you're going to an Elite Eight because winning seems to cure all. And another thing with that as well, like you also hope that Illinois' resume in the next few years deepens with the amount of NBA players in there, with the amount of success on the basketball court, that whenever you tie all that together, hopefully the recommendation of a former assistant coach means less and less and less by the day. That's something that Illinois really hasn't had. Like, there's been probably a lot of turnover at different big time blue blood programs on their staff, and I'm sure a lot of those situations and some of those situations haven't worked out to every assistant coach's best, but they still maintain talent, and you just that's where the depth of the talent in the next few years matters. If Kasparis is going to the NBA, if Tomislav makes it to an NBA contract later on down the road, um, you're thinking Will Riley. If he's a first round draft pick, like, there's a lot of calling cards that Illinois can make to those NBA players about their time in Champaign as well, that hope supersedes the opinion of Tim Anderson in Chicago.
And again, I've already prefaced this by saying I hate the idea of losing Tim, and it does genuinely make me sad. But if there's one thing that Brad Underwood is very good at, it's finding these up and coming assistant coaches. We thought our time as Illini, we were having so much success under that Chin Coleman, Orlando Antigua, and I forget the third guy's name. In the assistant coach, when all three left in the same offseason. And, two of them going to Kentucky and that last one going to Gonzaga. But it turns out the staff that we just had, between Tim Anderson, Jeff Alexander, and Chester Frazier, in my opinion, was an upgrade on the other three guys. And so right now we've kept Jeff Alexander. He's about to get a raise. He's someone who has huge influence in the international and in particular Europe basketball world. So it's like, I trust Brad, and I see, we talked about this, how Tyler Underwood is bringing in 4 stars, and he's so early in his assistant coach journey. As much as it hurts to see Tim Anderson go, this is one of those places where Brad has proven to me over and over again that I can kind of count on him to make the right hire when he's ready.
Yeah, AW comments and says Wagler is smooth, 6'6" guard who can play the point, is an elite shooter, and can distribute the ball. Yeah, his offensive skill set is not a question mark at all. Coming in as a freshman in the class of 2025, the biggest thing is, does he have the mentality to play defense at the Big Ten level, which Brad Underwood doesn't really recruit guys that doesn't have that mentality. It's just him developing physically to handle the toll of that, and that's where Fletch comes in, and that's where just time and development time comes into play as well. So yeah, offensively, I don't really have a lot of question marks on him. It's just the other things on the basketball court that you need to do to be successful in the Big Ten. He just needs time to develop those skills.
Yeah, Keaton's one of those guys who I think in a perfect world would be your third guard, the one you can cycle through. You have 2 guys maybe in front of him, but Keaton can come in, play 18 to 21 minutes, and you don't really lose any firepower whatsoever. And you're still able to basically just cycle through the type of shooters that the staff has essentially targeted. And I actually wanted to say that as well. Tyler Underwood, according to Derek Piper's radio show a couple months ago, had a big part of developing this offense, the best in the country, for the better part of last year. So if there's anyone who knows what to look for, what kind of skill sets that he wants in his players, it's the guy who had a big part in creating that offense, which again is why I'm even more excited about this recruitment, even though I think he's only like a top 140 or top 150 recruit overall.
Yeah, and I look at Dre Gibbs Lahorn's role here. Like, if Illinois' offense is just sputtering for a game next year, and you can bring him in, and just he can make a couple threes right away just to right the ship, turn momentum, come back to the bench and be like, hey, thank you, great work. You helped Illinois get back into the game, got some guys some confidence to score the basketball. So maybe that can be Wagler's role next year, which would be awesome. Jason Long says, I trust Brad. The last 2 years should make us realize that Tim is big time. And Sonny, I agree. I hope it's not a bad reason why he is leaving. Yeah, you never hope somebody's leaving Illinois for a bad reason. But yeah, I mean, I think Brad has the full trust of this whole Illini fan base. And if it is Tyler Underwood taking over the reins as that assistant, then I'm fine with it. Honestly, if Illinois was struggling and Brad made this, then I would have much bigger of an issue right now.
But see,
But
the thing is, I don't think he's already an assistant coach, right? So I
yeah,
think it's merely one of those where Orlando Antigua is our ace guy. Obviously, he's number one. I think now all that happens is essentially Jeff Alexander moves up to number two, and then you have Tyler Underwood and Zach Hamer, who are new guys, younger guys who were previously 4 and 5, jump up to 3 and 4. And my thinking is they're just going to go at it this season with those four guys. And then when the season is over, they've got the money, they've got the fan base, they've got the team, and they've got a coach who now has a pretty decent reputation in the sport to go out and find that number two again. And or maybe Jeff Alexander develops into a solid number two, and you don't necessarily need that guy. I don't want fans to think that Tyler Underwood is replacing Tim Anderson, because I don't know if he's ready for that. He's very green, and he doesn't have that long history of at least developing players like Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson, at least, he was an assistant coach with DePaul, where he brought in some fantastic recruits as well. So it's not a matter of Tyler Underwood replacing Tim Anderson. I think basically just each guy bumps up his role by one spot, and then we're going to be replacing Tim Anderson sometime next year.
Kirkland says, Austin, the stash is immaculate today. Thank you. Switched it up a little bit. Cut the beard, all mustache right now. We'll see how it goes. This is day 2 with the stash, so we'll see what life is like as a mustache man. Philip says, is Tyler Underwood turning into the coach in waiting? I think Brad has a lot of years to go as head coach of the Fighting Illini. Tyler Underwood, he may want to blaze his own trail at some point too. Like, there are some guys that like to stick with their dads in this situation, and there are guys that like to veer off and say, "Hey, I want to see what I can do by myself too." So we are much too premature for that conversation. Plus, Brad still has to keep winning, and because the minute Brad stops winning, then this whole conversation is moot. But as of right now, I think it's way too early to call that race.
Yeah, a great question though, Philip. I know some people are going to be asking it. Spoiler alert: that was going to be one of the segments of Locked On Illini over the next couple of days. Just because I was thinking about Tyler Underwood and what his potential career path would be, and I really think it's one of those where he probably stays another 2 or 3 years here at Illinois, continues to network and develop connections and whatnot. But then, honestly, if you think about it, it's probably best for him to take an assistant coach job somewhere else under somebody who isn't his father. So he learns under the ropes of not just one system in particular. And then you talk about, him being an assistant coach for another 3 years. Keep in mind, Tyler Underwood, I think, is like 24 or 25 years old. So,
Yeah.
this fits in his timeline. It's not like he's going to be an old man in, let's just say, 10 years. In 10 years from now, he'll be in his lower 30s, mid 30s. That's when you can entertain the idea of him taking like a lower level job first, maybe a MAC level job, and then down the road, then you can I can see it happening with the Illini if he continues on his trajectory that he seems to be on. But again, it's very early to say.
Plus, we don't really know what Tyler Underwood's dreams are. Like, this is all conjecture on outside of what his mental status is. Maybe he wants to be an NBA guy, and this is like his first role of being a coach. We don't know what his dreams and aspirations are as well. So it'll be interesting to see Tyler Underwood's career. I think I have a lot of faith in what he can bring to the table for the Illini right now, and I think with his natural basketball IQ that he's just been with Brad for his entire life. I think the sky's the limit for what Tyler Underwood can do in the coaching profession, whatever he decides he wants to do with it. Jason said, and also this year is so crucial for Illini program. If KJ and Will Riley have big years and one and done, watch out. This program is going to be electric. You're right. This is going to be an electric program if all of this lines up this year. A lot of people have asked me offline, like friends and family, Austin, what is this Illini program going to look like this year? And I say this with knowing what 0405 was, what 1989 was. This is the deepest Illini team we have ever seen. Because I've talked with you, I've talked with Kirkland, I've talked to Alex, and of the Armchair Illini guys. Like, everybody's giving me a different starting lineup of what this Illini basketball team will have for the first game of the season. And I can't say that any of them are wrong because, like, there's so much talent. There's so many variables of skills and different strengths and weaknesses of every player that this is going to be a fun year. It's also going to be a hard year for Brad Underwood early on to get everything right and get the correct potion in there for this to be successful. But my goodness, the depth of this team is something that we could have only dreamed of during John Gross's era.
Yeah, I'm excited in particular for Kasparis. I've talked about this. Like for me, it's very important to see him develop and have a very good season, at least his freshman season, and ideally, honestly, go high in the NBA draft because that would be such a boon for recruiting out there in Europe. You know, right now when we recruit the top players domestically, even though our program is one of the more successful ones, when we go up against a Duke, a North Carolina, or a Kansas, we're the underdog. You know, the people who grow up here know who the blue bloods are. Kasparis played for Barcelona, right, out in Europe. Kids out there, they may know a Duke or North Carolina is a big name, but it's not as set in stone as for the kids that are growing up here. And all of a sudden, if Kasparis can be the perfect role model of, hey, you can go to this program, they're going to coach you right, they're going to make sure you don't get homesick, they're going to develop you and make you successful to make a lot of money at the NBA level. Now you're talking about like the top coaches in the country, or in the continent, actually, all being open to that Illinois visit and maybe even kind of pushing their kids towards Illinois just because they know that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proven commodity business is the world of college athletics, whether it's football or basketball, because like if you're not a well-known commodity or a proven commodity, then it's all selling on hopes and dreams and NIL dollars. If you are a proven commodity, it's easy to just say yes. You're already bought in because the system is already put in place. The factory is already operating to its fullest potential. And in Europe, the only proven commodity you might be able to think of is UNC because of Michael Jordan jerseys. Like,
Yeah.
that's really it. Kobe Bryant means more to them than Grant Hill and Duke, and means more to them than Cliff Alexander in Kansas. Like, if Illinois can be the destination spot for these European players to get to the first round, then that opens up the talent pool to something Illinois has never even seen. And your only main competition at that point would essentially be BYU with their NIL dollars.
Right. And BYU's not messing around either. But
No.
we have that one benefit of BYU, that we don't, how do I say this politically correct? We don't have some of the other strings that you need to be attached to if you're on campus over there. You can kind of just be a college kid. Now, granted, again, they're going to pay you a lot of money out there. So sometimes you're willing to sacrifice a few things for a year or two to be paid seven figures. But if the Illini can continue to build their international presence, Jeff has been an ace like developer out there. It seems like every time that we're recruiting a new guy, we were in it for what Damien before, right? And Jeff
Yeah.
was leading that recruitment. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this Casper's kid who, to me, I don't remember the last time I was this excited for a recruit. He looks like the type of player I just enjoy watching on a basketball court. And so we already know what Orlando Antigua does, with his connections, both domestically, but also internationally, when you're talking about Puerto Rico and the Caribbean and the Olympic involvement that he's had on the international scene. If Illinois can find their niche, find their role as being one of the go-to schools internationally, we can build a successful program off of that because we have enough cachet locally and domestically to get top 30, top 50, and maybe eventually top 20, top 10 guys.
Absolutely. I mean, AJ, I'm going to butcher the last name,
The
Debancia.
Bonsa, yeah.
Uh, yeah, like the fact that he was even like wanting to visit campus says a lot. Like the number one player in the country domestically, like that's something crazy to think about as well. Uh, David commented and said, "I wonder if the Fears decommitment and the Tim Anderson stuff are connected or not. We would not reclassify Fears, but we did Will O'Reilly." Will Riley and Fears are two completely different levels of prospect, in my opinion. Will Riley is here, Fears is here, and I don't think you reclassify a guy that like that, but you do for Will Riley. And I don't think they truly are connected because I don't think Tim is that selfish to think like one recruit is a slap in the face to him. And so I don't think they're connected. And I mean, I give all the best to Fears, but he's not at that level to want to reclassify, especially with the roster depth that Illinois has this year.
Yeah, and I think that last point you made is the key. A guy like Fears, if he had come to Illinois, he would have been playing behind Boswell and Kasparis, and then we have Dre Gibbs Longhorn. It's that position was pretty stacked, and Fears would command a pretty decent NIL amount himself. So I actually think that Illinois gets the advantage here because what I'm hoping to see is, from what I know, they still have a very good respect for each other, the Illinois coaching staff and the Fears family. The Fears family they want something different than the Illinois coaching staff is willing to give. But I can absolutely see a scenario where he goes down to Oklahoma, he plays very well, you know, but again, he's a little undersized, so he may need to stick to college for another year or two. And guess what? Casper's is gone then, or maybe Kylan has decided to move on at that point. And then we have a roster spot open for a lot more minutes for a relationship we're already pretty in the trenches with. And I could still see Fears. I'm not giving up hope on that. I think there's still a possibility of seeing Fears in an Illini uniform. What could have happened had he come to Illinois this year is if he did sit on the bench and he was miserable, then he would have transferred out the year after, as you talked about. Like transfer portal is the name of the game now. And then we wouldn't have gotten the best Jeremiah Fears. At least now, with the way things have been unfolding, I think right now we have the potential to get the better version of Fears down the road, and it'll be more economically smart on our end too if we're trying to invest the NIL funds that the Fears family wants.
Jason, Austin, who is your starting five as of today? I know we'll get Sonny's as well while we're mentioning it. My point guard is Kylan Boswell. I'll use the positions. I know Brad Underwood were positionless, but just for the ease of it. So Kylan Boswell, point guard, shooting guard, Kasparis, small forward, Will Riley, power forward, Ben Hummerkaus, and your starting five, Tomislav Avicic. That is my starting five. What is yours?
I think 4 of the 5 I'm comfortable with. Well, actually, no, maybe I'll go in a different direction. Backcourt, same. Boswell, KJ. I think the three spot is tricky. I'm just going to go ahead and give it to Will Riley just because of his upside. I think if Will Riley ends up being a star in his freshman year, that raises the ceiling of this team considerably. So I'll put Will Riley at the three. I'm with you on Hummerkaus on the four. I think, and I think someone, I think John Fanta or something like that, he made a post about Hummerkaus today saying a lot of people are sleeping on him, and I genuinely do. I made an episode earlier in the offseason about who I thought would be the lead scorer on the team. And granted, this was before KJ and Will Riley were aligned. And I had said Hummerkaus. I think he's going to be a guy who can put 14, 15 points a game for us next season. But at the five, I'm going to go with Morez. I just think all the fantastic summer that he's just had. Apparently the summer workouts, he's been killing it according to some of the premium insiders. And we just don't know what's going on with this Avicic, being able to work it out with the whole transfer thing. Like he may be out for a couple of weeks. Hopefully not. Obviously, his family had to deal with that last year with his brother. But David, I guess I'm just kind of alluding to it now. There's no real updates. People are still sitting and waiting. Obviously, Brad Underwood says there's a couple of hurdles to cross. I kind of wish those hurdles would have been crossed and finished by the time the season had started, which happens in just a couple weeks, at least the official practices. But yeah, it's still a waiting game on T. So I'm just going to say Morez just because the staff at this point has already been working tirelessly with him. And I think he can, with the amount of scoring that the other four guys on the court can do, I think that's where Morez Johnson can kind of fit in with his skill set. To me, and Austin, I've talked about this with you before, I don't like a lineup where Morez Johnson and Ty Rodgers are on the court together. Because then the defense is, all of a sudden they know who to collapse on and who to respect when they have the ball or not. So that lineup basically, splits the two up. And I think as of today, September 18th, is our ideal starting lineup.
Yeah, which I can see Brad Underwood rewarding a guy like Ty Rodgers to put him in the starting lineup for some of those inconsequential matchups where you might bench Will Riley for Ty. Because I think KJ is as natural of a scorer as possible. So I think you have to keep him in a starting lineup. But maybe that's where the difference is. If Avicic is eligible to play, then it will be Avicic and Ty Rodgers. But if Avicic does, if he maybe if he isn't able to play, then Morez goes in and Will Riley steps into that small forward role. So that might be the give and take Brad Underwood has with the defense versus offense situation for this absolutely stacked roster.
Exactly. I mean, no matter what name we throw in there, it's like, okay, I can see it. I can see it. Like, we've come a long way from 6-7 years ago and what those teams were looking like.
I mean, honestly, if you would tell me that Booth is having one of the best summers ever, and the best fall ever, I would not be surprised if I was like, oh yeah, he'll be the starting four over Ben Hummerkaus. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's just the depth of this team. David said, "Will the Ole Miss and Illinois scrimmage be televised?" According to a tweet today, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but they said that that Ole Miss said that it will be televised. So more than likely an SEC network or maybe an ESPN Plus thing with the SEC Network Plus. So that's what I'm guessing it's going to be on, or maybe it's just Ole Miss TV online, something like that. So be on the lookout. That'll probably be released here in a little bit. But I know tomorrow we have the Big Ten basketball schedule release, which I am excited for. I believe we know who is our one play and our two plays are, but I'm excited to see how those West Coast trips line up. What are you looking forward to on the schedule release tomorrow?
I mean, same. We have that Duke game in February. So, like, for me, it's going to be interesting to see just how much of a gauntlet that month is going to be. Does the conference take it easy on them a little bit and let them get ready for that Duke game, or are we playing? I mean, this could happen to Illinois. This is Illinois. Like, Purdue, and then the next week Duke, and then 3 days later we're playing Indiana. I think that's what I'm
With
gonna.
a trip to UCLA or something thrown in
Right,
there as
yeah.
well.
So that's what I'm gonna. As soon as the schedule's released, I'm gonna scroll down to February real quick and see what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how close we are to the start of college basketball. And I know the episode was titled Illinois Nebraska Preview, but we're Champaign people. We're Illinois people. We know what the deal is. When there's any even inkling of Illinois basketball news, we will be talking about it. But we will get some Illinois football news in there on Friday whenever we preview this Illinois Nebraska game, which is a ranked Illinois Nebraska game, which is awesome to see. Uh, and Nebraska, Sonny, have you seen what they're doing on game day on Friday?
All online classes.
All online classes, only uh, executive personnel only
Hmm.
needs to go to the office, which they're treating Illinois like it's the Super Bowl, which is just wild to me. Like, I never would have thought a world where Nebraska would have been like, we need to shut down the campus. It's Illinois, Nebraska coming to town. Like, this is wild. And the atmosphere is going to be crazy. Dylan Raiola, Mini Mahomes is doing his thing, but no, he doesn't want to. It was all accident why he dresses like
Yeah,
Mahomes.
it's a
But
coincidence.
yeah, but we'll get to that later. Sonny, it's been a great show, and can't wait for more conversations about Illini sports.
Absolutely. All of you watching, if this is your first time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Austin and I are going to be doing pregame shows as often as we can for every football game. And then once basketball season comes rolling around, be going back to, 2, if not 3 episodes a week. We're going to be constantly turning out Illini content for you here. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sonny, and thank you to the boys at Armchair Illini. Alex and Kirkland are doing a great job pushing out content, talking all things Illini. So go to armchairillini.com for all of your Illini written needs, and we'll be here with you with the Illini cast. So thank you to all the people who commented. Thank you to our future subscribers if you're watching this after the live, and thank you, and have a great rest of your night.